Welcome to What Shall We Say to These Things?
I'm TJ.
And I'm MG.
And this is a low-key ghetto Bible study.
Yes. We've
really quickly made our way to the end of Ruth chapter 4.
Right.
To the end of Ruth. We've quickly made our way to the end of Ruth. It was just 4 chapters.
Right.
I feel like Esther took us a good minute, but
yeah.
We've gotten here very quickly. Hi, Jason.
Okay. Ready? You're joining us today? Okay. Yes, so this is the point where we ask you to... Did we finish saying what we were saying? Mm-hmm. Okay. Alright, so this is the point where we ask you to pause the video and pray. And then we'll get into it.
Right, so, this splitting up the verses in this chapter was a bit interesting because there's a clear-cut split.
Mm-hmm.
However, I decided to go against the cut a little bit. I like the usual cliffhanger. But we didn't quite get that much of it this week. But so our first section is verses 1 to 10. And it starts by telling us that the very same day, Boaz goes to the city gate. And this is telling us the same day in relation to chapter 3, where Ruth has spent the night at the threshing floor and she leaves early in the morning. And they're telling us, I don't think it's a couple of hours has passed. I don't think he waited that long. I think he went straight to the city gates. And then when he sees the relative who's closer to Elimelech than he is, he calls out to him and says, "Hey, come sit. I want to have a conversation with you." Mm-hmm. And then he proceeds to call 10 of the city elders who were standing around and ask them to come and join them as well, sit and witness the conversation. Mm-hmm. And then he proceeds to tell him, he's like, "Hey, I don't know if you know, but since Naomi has come back from Moab, she's selling Elimelech's property. Mm-hmm. I'm giving you, by being of closer relation, have first dibs. Mm-hmm. So I'm just making sure you're aware." And he says, if you don't want to buy it though, I will buy it. Mm-hmm. I'll buy it. And the guy says, no problem, I'll buy it. And he's like, "But you should know that it's being sold on the condition that the buyer takes Ruth as their wife." And then the guy went, I don't think I want to do that, because basically I am buying this property to only have to hand it over to her firstborn son. I don't think I can afford to do that. I'm taking away from my own descendants' inheritance in by doing that. So he's like, no, I don't think I want to do this. And then they explained to us that at that time, anytime there was a sale of land going on, either somebody was buying or selling, the custom was that one man would take off his shoe or his sandal and hand it to the other man. So the other relative takes off his sandal and he hands it to Boaz and he says, "I am giving up my right to buy this property." And so Boaz holds the sandal and he speaks to the city elders and everybody else who has gathered to see what is going on, and says, "You are witnesses. Today I am buying all the property that belongs to Elimelech and his sons. I will also marry Ruth, Mahlon's widow, so that his name would not be lost in the lineage of the tribe of Judah." And that was the end of verse 10.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, time to unpack. This chapter helped me understand why everybody knew everybody's business. Because for every transaction, 10 of the village elders have
minimum
to
of 10.
Right.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
And we realize that it's not just the elders there. People can stop.
Right. If it's at the gates.
And mind your business.
Yeah. So this is why everybody knows everybody's business.
Yeah. Starting in the very, very beginning of this chapter, what I see is that Naomi was right about Boaz. Like, he did not wait, he did not pause, he did not go to the collect pay. He went straight to the city's gate. He wasted no time. He was on a mission, and what is it? What do they say on the internet? He understood the assignment. He was set. So that was my first takeaway. Okay. The second thing I have, right, was I was a little sus of Boaz. I feel like he set the other guy up.
I have that down. This feels like a setup.
Yeah.
This feels like a setup.
I genuinely feel like he went in there with a plot, and he set this guy up.
Yeah.
He said the land is for sale. You have first choice. And also I'm telling you about it.
And if you don't want it, I'll take
buy
it. Yeah.
And then the guy's like, no, I want it. And then he's like, here's the catch, though. Here's the catch, though. You had to take the woman with it. You have to take the woman with it. And, like, I think I have other points around that. But for me,
that was
big setup vibes.
I have that now. It almost feels like a setup. But it was also interesting to me. I don't know if that is part of the storytelling style, or if like that contributes to the evidence that Boaz set the guy up. Because, like, I feel like earlier in the story they could have told us that Naomi was selling the land.
Mm-hmm.
But like, this is the first we're hearing of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, is it part of Boaz's?
I believe that she was genuinely selling the land.
Okay.
Because that would have been a way for her
to immediately get a source of income.
Yeah. And also, like, more than likely she would have been downsizing, because more than likely it might have been agricultural land.
Yeah.
And like, she no longer has any men in her life to do the work, so keeping the land doesn't make sense for her. And otherwise she would have to hire people. She didn't have money in the first place. So I do believe that she may have been selling the land.
But yeah, that just another instance where the storytelling method is jarring for me, because like we didn't know that. We find out when Boaz is talking about it that she's selling the land.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that helped me believe that it was a setup. But yeah, you're right. She would be selling the land, and it would be a good ploy as well to get Ruth married.
Yeah.
But like previously in reading the book, I'm always like sneering, I guess, at the Redeemer guy. Even though now I'm rooting for Boaz, but it just seems like he's inferior. But reading it now, I'm like, the dude has every right not to want to get a wife while he's buying land. Like that's not typically how buying land works, right?
But I think it's more complicated than that.
And it's land that is not going to
add to the inheritance that he passes on to his descendants. Yeah.
So he has every right to refuse. He has every right to refuse the offer. Now knowing
the full story.
Yeah.
But on that point, I thought it was interesting because we made a thing up. We had a. I don't know if we recorded it, but to me we had a conversation about the fact that Boaz was not married. And it's interesting because it looks like this guy's not married either.
Yeah.
Like, unless it's a thing where they have two wives.
Yeah.
But I think it's also interesting that possibly he's not married either. To the point where we offering him a wife with land. Like, buy the land, get a free wife. But yeah, and I think picking off the last point you made about him, it not being land he gets to keep, because I think I might have read it in a particular version where he says that he'd be paying for the land only to have to give it back.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think it says he couldn't afford to do that, and I think literally it may be a situation where he could not afford to buy the land just to give it back to the family.
Because like he could buy the land and then sell it.
Or he could buy the land and work it and and keep it in for his descendants. But this is a situation where he can't do that.
He's literally giving money away.
Yeah. That's literally what it is. Which is interesting because it looks like this is something Boaz is comfortable doing.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to our whole idea of who he is.
Right.
From the time...
His generosity.
From his entrance into our Hallmark movie, Yeah. So...
another point I had is that last time we were talking about we didn't know who Ruth's husband was.
We find out this time around. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting that it was... I'm not even sure which version I got the name in. But I was reading it somewhere and they referred to her, Ruth, as Mahlon's wife. Yeah. They were preserving Mahlon's lineage. But I didn't put this in my notes, but it was a thought I had. Like, what?
This is going to be a noisy recording. We have two hooligans in the room with us, so anything could happen.
What would have happened, right, if both Ruth and Orpah had come back? Like, that's what you think? That's your input, sir? Yeah, like, what would
I guess Boaz might have to check his brother. I don't know.
like, would they have both needed? Because like, the land would have then had to be split between the descendants of the two sons.
Okay.
So like, there was just like a whole other scenario that like, what is it, sir? You have your 2 cents to add. Come and tell us.
Come closer to the mic. Yeah, we need to hear you clearly.
Yeah. So this was what shall we say to these things? TJMJ featuring ginseng.
Yes.
Yeah. So that thought crossed my mind. I think like literally this morning, what would have happened if there had been 2 daughters-in-law who needed providing for. Yeah, but that was it. Boaz would end up with 2 wives. We don't know. Okay. Yeah, so I think those are all the main points I have. And the last thing I had was Boaz was about that life though.
Yeah, he was ready.
Yeah.
He was ready.
Yeah, he was for it. Yeah. You have anything else you want to share? Okay. So last 12, 11 verses ish. We're looking at 11 to 22. Okay, so basically the elders and the people who stopped by to be nosy and witness the transaction respond by saying, "We are witnesses. The property is now yours to buy." And then they continued by speaking blessings on Boaz's family. They said, may his wife be like Rachel and Leah, the mothers that all the tribes of Israel came from. And then they said, may his house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore unto Judah. And so it was just blessings of, I guess, his quiver being full and a good home and a good family and that kind of thing. And then we move on. So we are told Boaz married Ruth and she had a son. And then the women say unto Naomi, "Praise the Lord, he has given you a family. May his name be famous throughout all of Israel. He will continue your family line and will take care of you in your old age. Your daughter-in-law who loves you, who is worth more than 7 sons, has given him to you." And Naomi took the baby into her arms and loved him as her own son. And then we are told that the women around her, the women in the neighborhood, gave a suggestion for the baby's name. And they spread the news. Naomi is a grandmother. She has a grandson. And it looks like they agreed with the name that the women suggested, and they named the baby Obed. And he became the father of Jesse, who was the father of David. Now these are the descendants of Perez, the son of Judah. Perez was the father of Hezron, and Hezron was the father of Ram, and Ram was the father of Amminadab, and Amminadab was the father of Nahshon, and Nahshon was the father of Salmon, and Salmon was the father of Boaz, and Boaz was the father of Obed, and Obed was the father of Jesse, and Jesse was the father of David. And that's the end of chapter 4, as well as the end of the book of Ruth.
Okay. Cool.
So, let's get into this portion. Like, this my first note is like a twofold thing. First, the people of the community were nosy, but also they seem to be very positive, because throughout the book we get this general thing of people's interactions with each other. There were a lot of blessings being spoken. So like when Boaz came to the field, he blessed the employees. When Ruth came to him on the threshing floor, he blessed Ruth. And in this situation where he has agreed to buy the land and marry Ruth, the people, the elders and the people who are witnessing, speak blessings onto him and his family and his future offspring as well. So I think that was that was a beautiful thing for me. And I think that is something that we as a society, a modern society, might have lost. I've lost a little bit, and I think we need to. Maybe that's how I should live my life. I needed to have taken note of that. But I think that's a beautiful thing, to greet people with blessings and in conversation to speak blessings onto their families and their descendants and their lives.
One of the blessings I read in one of the versions was that they were hoping that Boaz would be well known. And they essentially go down in history, and you could clearly see that happening as you read the thing. So that's one of my points.
Another thing that I found I found interesting, because like with the number of times it's documented, throughout the Bible, like you kind of make sense. It kind of makes sense that they would be aware. But I thought it was interesting that they were very so aware of their ancestry and their lineage, because they were able to specifically say, Rachel and Leah. They were specifically able to say Perez, who Tamar born to Judah. And like at the end, when we get the listing of the lineage, we've realized that Perez is not that far away, which in context of the bigger picture means that Rachel and Leah are also not that far away in terms of lineage, because
Judah is
direct from
the child,
right, from direct descendant of the Rachel Leah line. I'm saying it like they're one person, Rachel and Leah. But I thought it was interesting, and I think that stood out for me because of how I feel about not knowing my own ancestry and not knowing my own lineage. So I think that is why that stood out for me. That's why that was significant for me. But I thought it was really cool that, you know, they know who their ancestors are and they are able to chronicle it. Yeah. And use it in their blessings.
Yes.
So I think that's what I need to start doing. You know, when I bless you and say, may you be like your grandmothers and your great grandmothers. You know, I think that's cool.
My points were just, I guess, most on this section, most like they were not, I don't know how to explain it. They were just observations. I don't know. Like, okay, so they bless. I find we don't know a lot about Perez. We don't find a lot about him in the Bible. But we have to assume that he was a great man because they use him as a blessing for Boaz.
And we also find out that Boaz is a direct descendant of him.
Ah, right. Okay. Yeah. And it made me also think that it's possible that people don't think to record people's lives until they become
great people.
So I guess must have been too late for Perez, so everybody already knew he was great, so it didn't make sense recording it. But I feel like the story of Ruth is only recorded because she's an ancestor of King David. Yeah. So it could have been, because to me it's such an obscure story. Like, we don't know that.
I don't think that like that's why it was recorded. Okay, let me not say. I don't think that's why it was recorded. I feel like they were recording everything. But it was
so strange. The Moabitess who marries a farmer, essentially that's what he was.
But I think it was included in
in the Bible,
right?
Because
of that context. Because like somebody had to, because like to have the exact conversation she has with Naomi.
But listen, Obed growing up, you don't see Naomi telling him the story his whole life.
That's true. Yeah.
And so that would become an important story to him, and he would pass it on to Jesse, and he would pass it on to his sons. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, I get you. Yeah. Yeah. In hindsight, it became a significant story.
Right.
Yeah. I get you.
That's what I'm processing. And another thought that came to me is like, why didn't Ruth have a child? Like, before Boaz, like...
But we don't know how long they were married for.
And to me, that makes it even more crazy.
That she left her family?
Family. If they were not married for long. It's two things. Either they couldn't get pregnant, which becomes a bit of a meh. It depends on which one of them was the challenge.
Well, we know it's not her.
No, because it becomes a miracle her getting pregnant if it was her.
Okay.
But then you have the concept of if they were shortly married, if he died shortly after they were married, it's even crazier that she left
her family
with this lady that she hasn't known for that long.
Yeah, because I think when we talked about it, it said they died within a 10-year span of, I'm not sure if it was moving to Moab or if it was in 10 years of their father's death. I'm not sure. Like, I would have to go back and look at notes, but I think it was like a 10-year span. So it's very possible that depending on what age they moved, the boys moved to Moab, they may have only become of marriageable, not just age, but of like position and ability to provide for a family at a certain point and then die shortly after. Yeah, so that's an interesting point. One of the things I have is that the women talk about the baby being a descendant of Naomi, while the baby actually has no relation to Naomi. Like,
wow.
The baby's related to Elimelech and Mahlon.
Okay.
But the baby has no kind of actual relation. We don't know that for sure, right? But
like Naomi could be related to Elimelech.
Right, we don't know that for sure. But like based on what she says, Boaz is Elimelech's relative. So, as far as we know, this baby has no direct biological connection to Naomi, but he's considered to be her descendant. This is her grandson. I thought that was very interesting.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, that is interesting.
The second thing I have also in relation to Naomi is that in my mind, I don't know why. I don't know if it's because like watching TV and movie and cartoon adaptations of the story of Ruth, she's portrayed when they come back to Bethlehem as a more mature person. But the women tell her, this child will take care of you in your old age, which means she can't be that old.
But as we were just talking, you were talking about something, or how Perez and Rachel and Leah are not that far away. But I'm processing that like these people would have been having kids early.
That's the other thing. Right? Yeah. That's what I thought about when I was looking at this point. When Bible scholars look at Mary, the mother of Jesus, they're talking about her being like 14 years old, 14, 15 when she has this child. And so we're looking at the average woman possibly starting having children, what we consider the teen years. And so it's very possible that Naomi could have had 10-year-old sons when she was 25.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So another 10 years, they're 25, she's 35. So like as in my mind, she's a more mature person, but
it's very possible
that she's not that old.
Yeah.
And but then I also put into context for me, like, we're talking about Boaz being an older person, but we also have no idea of like
what age is considered to be an older person.
Yeah, and especially in relation to the fact that we don't know how young Ruth is either. Yeah. So I think all of that came into perspective for me, looking at them talking about the child taking care of her in her old age. Because I'm like, how old will this child have to get to be able to take care of you? Like, we're anticipating you getting to old age and that type of stuff.
But something that I didn't have a note of it, but I processed it while I was reading that part where they talk about this child taking care of her. It's this faith and this positivity, because Naomi, this is something I experience like regularly, where something bad happens and then I'm almost holding my breath when a good thing happens, because I'm afraid like it's going to be ruined by another bad thing. And so here are these people. Naomi's lost literally all the men in her life, and it's tragic. And here is another man in her life, another male, and they're calling him somebody who's going to provide for her. But the people who were supposed to provide for her, she lost them, and nobody is processing that this could be another reality.
But we're not dwelling on that. But I think
that's beautiful.
And I think also in they talk about Ruth and they say she's of more value to you than seven sons. Yeah. So I don't think they like ignoring the fact that she has lost the men in her life, her sons.
No, that's not what I was saying.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying in light of that, they're saying yes, you may have lost 2 of your sons, but here's your daughter-in-law who is of more value to you than 7 sons. So I thought I was just tied in because they say that around the same time.
Okay.
I just thought it was a beautiful thing to say, and especially considering the value that would have been placed on sons yes, in that culture, in their custom. So I thought it was just like, I think that's a beautiful thing. Like, to have, I don't know that I necessarily want a mother-in-law to say that about me, but like just to know that, like,
she was appreciated.
Right?
She
yeah.
was appreciated.
That that like there was so much value in the relationship, in the connection, that comparison could have even been made,
and not even obvious.
And not it was, the interesting thing is the comparison was not even made by Naomi.
That's what I'm
it's
saying.
People outside who made that comparison.
That keeps coming back. That everybody knows how Ruth is taking care of Naomi. That keeps coming back. It's become obvious. It's visible. It's not a secret. Another thing that this section had me thinking about was the reception that Obed receives. Like his grandmother, like, who you are saying is not necessarily even related to him, is so excited about him. All the women in the neighborhood, and he's, before he existed, the village elders have already blessed him.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking that that's so beautiful. It made me think of a conversation I was having with mommy about our cousin's new baby on the way. And I was telling her how excited I am to meet this little person. And she was saying, like, that is what every child deserves
to come into.
To experience. Yes, to have people looking forward to their existence and looking forward to loving them and already loving them. And it's, I guess I could have seen that in this story.
Okay, I understand. It became a real process for you because you could relate.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
One of the things I have here is that it, like, the other relative who was closer would not buy the land because he did not want to have to support Mahlon's lineage, right? But in doing exactly that, Boaz went down in history as an ancestor of King David and eventually as an ancestor of Jesus. And I think, like, because, like, that was an act of, like, pure selflessness. I am putting this money out. I'm basically paying to maintain Mahlon's lineage. And I think it's interesting because, like, Mahlon is not mentioned in the lineage, but just his action, because, like, technically what they were saying is that Obed would have been counted as Mahlon's, not necessarily descendant, but, like, Mahlon's property and everything would have been passed on through him. So it's like, if you think about it like that, it's possible that even where Jesse lives and where David grew up might have been Mahlon's property. That's just an interesting thought I have. But yeah, so he basically paid, like, took money out of his pocket to ensure that Mahlon's lineage was not wiped out. And then, as a result, a direct result of that, he's able to go down in history as, like, ancestor to the Messiah. Yeah, I think that's beautiful. You know, just think that's beautiful.
Yes, I think
poetic justice in a beautiful way.
It's thing because both of Obed's parents have showed self-sacrifice, and it's like you're saying, it's poetic. It is appropriate for them to be the ancestors of the Messiah.
I have a side note. It's not mentioned in this chapter, but just for, like, historical reference, Boaz is the son of Rahab from Jericho, and so he has a family history of loving and embracing foreign women who have accepted the God of Israel. So foreign women who have accepted the God of Israel, that's Boaz's brand. Like, his mother, his wife. And I think it's interesting because I'm wondering, like, was Rahab still alive at this point? Like, did she get to meet Ruth? Like, would they have bonded over, like, foreign women things? You know? Like, I just thought that was, like, I think that's nice.
Yeah. I think so. Definitely.
And I think being aware of that may have also been why he would have been so open
and willing to embrace her, despite her being a foreigner.
Yep. You have anything else you want to share?
Nope, that's all of my points.
Okay, so you want to tell us about what you learned about God or what you were reminded about God?
Okay, so they're all in a ball, and some of them make me very uncomfortable. But it reminded me of that. I don't know where it's taken from. I should have checked that out. But God, being the one who gives and who takes away. So, and it made me think, I'm going to choose to to apply it figuratively, because non-figuratively, like I can't. But essentially, God allowed Elimelech, Mahlon, and Chilion to die. And we could say because we don't.
It's not necessarily because.
Yeah, but it's that happening
allowed
for Ruth and Naomi to move back to Bethlehem, and indirectly cause King David and King Solomon and eventually King Jesus to be born. So like applying that is sometimes God allows bad things to happen, our Elimelechs and our Mahlons and our Chilions to die, so that the King Davids and King Solomons and King Jesuses can be born. And like that, like
it's a difficult thing to process. It's a difficult
thing to process. Yeah. That sometimes something has to be given up
or lost
for something necessary and something beautiful to happen. And I guess that is the basis of our existence as humans. You know, childbirth is painful, and life is painful, and being a Christian is difficult. But what we have to be keeping in mind during the dark days is that something better is coming, something better is in store. We have something to look forward to. We have hope. Yeah. And that leads into the whole that will lead into my my things about me. So okay. I'll leave that one later.
Okay. I think my 2 points kind of skirt around the point you just made. And the first one is that God sees the big picture. So while I might be struggling with what is happening now, he can see what is happening like 10 years down the line. Okay. And then in the second part is that because he can see the big picture, I can be assured that I guess this leans into my thing, but the me part. Yeah. But the point I have is that he's working all things together for my good. Yeah. And so at the end of the day, like, he's doing his thing. Yeah. And I can believe that it's all for my good.
Alright, so my next point connects somewhat to that. It's about, you know, this book reminds me about God's providence and his favor working, because like I don't have my, like, David, what was she, his great grandmother? Jesse was his father, so Obed would have been his grandfather. So it was Ruth. I don't have my great grandmother's history lying around for me to read, but that doesn't mean God wasn't involved in her life in the sense that it had me thinking, like, we've been saying, tides turned.
You have her pictures on the wall. Well, both of them. Yes. On your father's side.
Yeah, with tides turned, and were things flipped on their heads so that she could end up where she should be.
So you could be
so
here.
That I could be here. Yeah. And so, like, God knows my origins, like, intimately. Like, he knows where I come from, and he knows what had to happen for me to be here. And like, that is just, it's mind-blowing, it's awe-inspiring, and it led to my like, yeah, people always joke about some kids being accidental, but like, I know that there's lots of I guess, what's the word, it's not clear how we can accept, like, all of us being here on purpose, because for a lot of us, bad things had to happen for us to exist.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
But I think that me being here, me being who I am, happened on purpose. Maybe not necessarily the circumstances, right? But
I feel like the circumstances were allowed Like they were not necessarily the best circumstances. Like if we're talking, maybe we should have this as a side conversation because I feel like we're going along here. But yeah, I get what you're saying, but I feel like,
and what, yeah, I think it's more complicated than how I'm saying it.
mm-hmm.
But my being here is part of God's purpose, and that means that I have a purpose, right?
Yeah.
And so that was one of the things that I wanted to take away. And me being here also, being part of God's purpose can help me to trust him, because like he's being intentional. And so anything that happens to me is
part of the plan.
And so I need to trust him when the bad is going on, and praise him when I'm holding my grandson in my hands.
That like the point I have about like myself is that, like Naomi, it is okay for me to voice my sadness and bitterness when I feel like God is dealing bitterly with me. I think that's fine. I can tell him like what is going on, like why are you doing this? Like that's okay. But on the flip side, like you saying, when he brings me the moments of joys, I need to lift my hands and my voice and praise him. My only other point.
One more point, and let me do it before you do that. Well, no, do that one. They're related.
Okay, so I think I mentioned this last week when I spoke about Naomi's view of Boaz.
Okay.
And I think I had to bring it back this week because I'm still struggling with procrastination, and I just need to be like Boaz and get the job done.
Yes.
In terms of going and telling the people as well as having a children. Your mother would love that. Your mother would love that. Get the job done.
Okay. I don't remember what I was going to say. I was going to say something related to that, and then my point. For procrastinators, they recommend the 5-second rule. You say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and at 1 you get up and do it. It works. I've seen it. I've tried it. It works.
At 1 I would go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, it's supposed to help you do what you have to do. But yeah, in relation to Boaz doing what he had to do, I think it's also important for me to recognize when I can't afford to do stuff like the other guy. So like, not all of us are made to be as heroic as Boaz, and we need to recognize when we should be Boaz, because I think there will always be times where we need to extend that amount of generosity and self-sacrifice, and when we need to realize that it's going to hurt us to long term, and our descendants, our the people we care about as well, and that's not the sacrifice God calling us to make. I think it's important to find the balance and be able to recognize. I guess it will require Holy Spirit guidance to recognize when we should be Boaz, when we should be this other guy.
But like, will I remember the thought? Yeah. Okay. So as you say that, I remembered one last thing. It just came to me. I was like, it's okay to low-key set people up sometimes. Get your land, get your wife.
Okay.
Get your life. It's okay. It's okay.
I thought you were talking about Naomi, but this is even better. When you said set people up.
Oh, matchmaker.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily advocating for that, because then people might want to try and set me up. So,
okay.
I mean, if you think that's your role in life, then go ahead, right? But like, get your man, get your life, get your wife.
Okay, so we've come to the end of Ruth 4. Finally, well, not finally. It's been a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And we said we're going next with Genesis.
Which chapter? Where does that start? Let's Google it.
Okay.
Let's Google it. So we start with Abraham?
Yeah.
Okay. Let us see. Where does Abraham come into the story? Let's see. Genesis chapter 12.
Okay. So we start with Genesis chapter 12. And I'm assuming we're doing the whole chapter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I have no idea how long the chapter is, but let's see. It is. Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
20 verses.
All right. So Genesis chapter 12 next time. Tune in. And as usual, we'd love to hear your thoughts, your comments, anything that stood out to you on Ruth, anything we missed that you think was important. We'd love to learn from you.
Yep.
All right. So this has been What Shall We Say to These Things?
I'm TJ.
And I'm MJ.
And until next time,
we're out.